2022 is 2020 done. Another year thrown into the razor blade hole to rot behind the walls. Out of sight, out of mind, which means it doesn't exist. And with that, another year of our lives no longer exists, for the past doesn't exist and neither does the future. Only an unending sequence of presents. And how is your present doing? My present? It's doing okay. All things considered. It's all right. And some people's present is not, they're not all right. They're not. You have to appreciate how good your present might be. And not to dwell so much on the past, for dwelling on the past can lead to bitterness, for wasted opportunity and regret, and dwelling on the future can lead to dread about the ending we all have as we lie on our deathbed. Hopefully you're not bleeding to death. Hopefully your death is a bit more pleasant. And in between those 2 points in time, there are video games. 10 video games even. 10 that might get ordered into a list. The 10 games that I enjoyed playing the most in the year 2022. It's more than 10, actually. I mean, I say 10, but I've played more than 10. And not all of those games came out in the year 2022. That's why, last year, I started including the best old game of the year. The inaugural. I believe that's how you say that. The inaugural old game was Ghost Trick. A very good game. But it did not come out in the year 2021. It was nowhere close to that. So, we have the old game of the year. So, this year, what is this year's old game? Why? I mean, it can only really be one thing. It's gotta be Grim Fandango. How could it not be? Grim Fandango was a game, or Grim Fandango Remastered, I should say, because even the remastered version is old. The original version, even more old than that. But Grim Fandango was a game that I heard a lot about over the years. Never played it myself, and I was very interested to finally try it out, and it lived up to people's praise. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was really taken by the quality of the writing and the voice acting. I thought it was top-notch even compared to stuff coming out today. And I just think that this is my favorite old game of the year 2022. Grim Fandango Remastered still holds up, is still a good time to play, and it has memorable characters and dialogue. Living people are frightening. That is the lesson that we can learn from Grim Fandango Remastered. Living people are scary as hell, and Grim Fandango was a good time to be had. That is the old game of the year. But before we get onto some 10 ordered games, I do have to think about some other games that I played, which I didn't actually complete. And I feel bad about that. There are a few games that I quite liked, but just for whatever reason, never got back to them, never continued on with them. And I feel like if I had, that I probably would have put on this list somewhere. So, even though these following games are not on the list, these are games that I do think would have been if I had spent more time with them. There are 3. They're Tunic, Proteus, and Tactics Ogre Reborn. Tunic came out earlier in the year. I had played that for a bit, tried it out. I thought this is really good. I like it a lot. And then, for some reason, never got back to it. I don't know why. If you were asking me why did I not continue playing Tunic, I don't know. I really have no idea why I never got back to that. Because I really liked what I saw. And I feel like if I had continued on with that, that definitely would have been on this list this year. I really liked the tone of it. I really liked what it was doing. I liked the manual pages. Manual pages reminiscent of the Zelda 1 manual were very cute. And I have no explanation for why I did not get back to it. Proteus is a game that has been in early access for a while. The early access version was available last year, but it officially came out this year in 2022. I really liked what I played of it. It is an extremely crunchy FPS. Everything about it crunches, from the look to the sound to the gameplay to the blood effects. And I don't know why I didn't keep playing it. I played the first number of levels and then stopped. And I mean, once again, I don't know why. Maybe I just tried something else, went on to something else, left this one behind, but I don't know why I left it behind. I don't know. It's fast, it looks great, it's fun. It's an old-style FPS, and probably the best version of that I have seen in a while. Tactics Ogre Reborn! I put quite a few hours into that in the, last couple of months. And this is just an issue of time, I think. I really enjoyed what I played of Tactics Ogre Reborn, but I only played, 2 chapters out of 4? And while that makes it sound like I played half of the game, it's much less than that, because Tactics Ogre Reborn is something you're intended to play multiple times, because there are multiple paths, multiple endings, not to mention a lot of bonus content. Some of it is locked behind a really hard gauntlet of battles, apparently. And it sounds like you're playing this for, at least 100 hours if you actually want to get into it. I can imagine that if this came out earlier Tactics Ogre, of course, is an old game. But Tactics Ogre Reborn, I imagine that if I had played it, imagine if it came out earlier in the year, I can see myself having put in a lot of time into this over the year, and it probably would have been quite high on this list. As it is, I just didn't have the time, and I feel sad about that. So, I just wanted to mention that. Just wanted to go over these 3 games that I really would have liked to put on this list. But unfortunately, it just wasn't happening. It wasn't in the cards. But what are in the cards? Well, not those games. But there are 10 games for us to look at that did make it. Some games are hard to find information on, and Runner is one of those. Seems like a game that not really anyone has heard about. It seems obscure even as far as VR games go, but it is one of my favorite games of the year. An extremely fast action game made to look like, anime. They love them some anime, clearly, and they're going for a very specific style with it, where you're riding a cool bike, shooting the cops that are trying to stop you. Look, you are a cyberpunk criminal of some sort, probably with a heart of gold. There's a story of some kind. Probably with a heart of gold, escaping the city, and the cops are taking you down. But you have to take them down first. Runner is a very fast-paced VR, very arcade-ish game. In terms of the action, the speed, and the difficulty, Runner is hard as balls. I would describe it. Imagine some hard balls. Runner's harder than that. Because it's not a very long game. There's 7 levels, but it will take you a while to get through, because I think that in my first session playing Runner, I'm pretty sure I never even got past the first level. It seems prohibitively hard at first. Fortunately, the developers did relent on some of that, as a later patch added checkpoints to the levels, as they originally did not. But it is a very good time. It is a lot of fun. And I feel like this game really captures something good about VR that not every game does. It is a game that I would definitely say benefits a lot from being a VR game as opposed to being a normal game. There is a sense of kinetic action, of speed and excitement that Runner does a really good job of capturing. Also, I find that a certain genre of VR game that I have come to enjoy is something I guess I would describe as riding a cool vehicle while doing stuff. It is a vehicle that a genre I think VR tends to do really well. And so in this one, you ride your cool cyber bike. There are different options for bikes with different strengths and weaknesses. You can basically change some of the colors on the bike. Of course, I colored my bike pink in memory of Succulent Ham, and so that's why we're riding a pink bike, trying to escape the cops and get out of the city. Runner is a real good time. It is a very fun game, but it's a very demanding game. It's also, you can tell that this is a developer that doesn't have a huge budget. And when I'm looking at Runner and when I'm playing it, one of the reasons it's on the top 10 is that I'm really hoping they continue on with this. I hope they continue to improve it, add more content to it. And that seems promising because they did recently release an update that has a bonus level. So I do hope they continue to add more content and to improve on this, because I do think that with Runner, they have something special here. I feel like they really capture a sense of VR-specific fun that they did a really good job with, and I hope they continue on building this out. So that is why Runner is number 10 of my 10 games of the year. I was considering putting it higher. I was considering it. But I feel like number 10 is probably a good position for it. It's a lot of fun to play. It feels like a starting point. It feels like a point from which they could do bigger things and build out on this. But as far as like a fast, fun, arcade-ish experience in VR goes, I would highly suggest Runner. I really like everything that this game does. It is frustrating, though. It is frustrating because of how hard it is, but of course that does make it more satisfying when you actually complete the levels. There are some gameplay improvements I would want to see. For example, you have a cool anime sword. The sword is not very useful, and in the off chance that a developer of the game might see this, make the sword more useful, make it more powerful. I feel you should be able to cut enemies who get too close to you with the sword, cut them in half. And that doesn't happen when I swing that sword. I feel the sword should be more powerful because it's anime. That's a very specific complaint, I know. But I've been greatly enjoying Runner. This came out in October, greatly enjoying it in the last couple of months of the year. And I was about to say I would suggest this for simple VR fun, but then again, maybe I can't because it's very fast and very demanding, and someone who is new to VR might have trouble handling this. That is certainly possible, that maybe this is an experience that you wanna get your VR legs strengthened to play some Runner. But if you do have those strong VR legs, and you want to ride a cyberpunk motorcycle driving out of the future city while the cops are on your tail, I would strongly suggest Runner. Currently, it's on the Oculus Quest. There is supposed to be a Steam version, but it is not available as of now. Hopefully it will be in 2023.
J'essaye.
Ne me frappez pas.
Calmez-vous. Nous ne sommes pas avec ces hommes. Vous habitez ici?
Oui. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Ils sont là.
Ne lâchez pas la torche. Tant que vous la tenez, ils ne peuvent rien vous faire.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent?
Venez avec nous. Nous devons monter à la surface. Le soleil nous protégera.
Calmez-vous, vous ne risquez rien. D'accord. Attendez, c'est bestial. Il en vient plus.
Il y en a d'autres. Continuez d'avancer.
Ils sont trop nombreux. N'arrêtez pas.
Oubliez-les. Avancez.
Oui.
I've never really been that into the misery simulator genre, but there is one exception, and that is Plague Tale. So this is the second game in a series of 2. And apparently, according to the developer, this is the last of 2, as apparently it's a duology, not a trilogy. Plague Tale Requiem continues the adventures of murder girl Amicia de Rune in her desperate attempt to find a way to save her dear brother, Rat Catastrophe Child. It is... Basically, you could consider this the second half of the story of the first one. It's a direct continuation. And it's somehow more sad than the first game. The first game, I felt, started off sad, and started to get a real sense of adventure as you have your team, you put a party together, you make friends, you identify strong villains that your heroes are going to go against, defeat the villains and overcome them and save the day, was kind of the feel the first game had. And it really did, build up a real, you might say, a rat-based power fantasy, as it built up to a final confrontation of you versus Emperor Palpatine, but he's Catholic, as the two of you just hurled tornadoes made of rats at each other. And it was pretty awesome. Plague Tale Requiem is not like that. Plague Tale Requiem starts off good, and then it goes to bad, and then to worse, and then to even more worse. I'm talking, of course, about what our characters are going through. The game itself is quite good. Our characters would probably rather be somewhere else. Plague Tale Requiem is less of an adventure to fight villains. There are villains, but you don't really have the strong villain characters the first game had, because it really isn't about the villains. It's about our characters desperately trying to figure out a way to save the life of, once again, our dear, dear little brother, Rat Boy, who, as he is getting a little older, it is clear that he is becoming a walking rat catastrophe who will bring death and destruction wherever he goes. Rat-based destruction, whether he wants to or not, assuming that he doesn't just die from his blood disease. Either one of these things might happen. And Amicia is trying to find a way to possibly save the day. However, saving the day is not really what Plague Tale Requiem is about. I refer to this as a misery simulator, and it is. It's about people that you like, they're charming characters, being in a really bad situation and going on an adventure where the conclusion starts to become, hey, you can give your best effort, you can give it 110%, but realize that sometimes giving 110% is just going to result in self-destruction. Maybe that's not what you should be doing. Plague Tale Requiem is a story about a teenage girl, Amicia de Rune, who loves her brother too much, loves him very much. And she is going through extreme conditions to try to help him. And all the friends want to save dear Rat Boy. However, Amicia herself is clearly exhibiting symptoms of PTSD due to the extreme violence that has been done to her and that she has done to others, except the people around her are not really noticing because of her brother's... her brother really is the main focus. And so you're playing as a character who has to be the rock of the team, who has to be the the one who never falls down, the one who can always be relied on, but at the same time, it's quite clear that she is under extreme pressure, and maybe the eggshell is starting to crack a little bit. It's not, Plague Tale Requiem is not what I would say is a good time. It's not a feel-good smile time. It is a story about characters that you get to like, going through some experiences that, hey, maybe there just is no good way out of this. It's not a genre that I play all that much, but this is an exception. I do like Amicia. She is my favorite murder girl, a girl who murders a lot. She kills so many people in both of these games. Both of these games, she walks into a nice town saying, "What a nice town. Maybe I won't have to kill anyone." And then she has to kill many, many, many people. That's kind of, it's a problem. She knows it's a problem. This is the second game in the duology. It appears to end the story. So this seems to have a pretty conclusive ending to the Plague Tale story. I liked it a lot. You can kind of tell where things are going. Like in this game, if you see anyone who's happy or is smiling, do not think about even smiling in this world. If you see someone who's happy, they're gonna get it so hard. Make sure you be sad and miserable in this world, then maybe you'll be spared. Yes, happiness is not allowed in Plague Tale Requiem, but I'm glad I played it. I felt like I enjoyed the first one more. The second one feels like a slow and morose feeling of inevitability as you figure out what it is you're gonna have to do before Amicia does, and it leads to where you think it's going. Like I said, it's not a fun time, but I'm glad I played this year to close out this story. It's number 9 on my list.
Over there. Who could it be? Do we have a guest today?
Tama, the person standing there is...
Is this the same scene we saw at the beginning of the Somnium?
We couldn't hear then, but I wonder if we can hear this time.
Yeah.
This year, the sequel to AI The Somnium Files came out, which... I was surprised. I enjoyed AI The Somnium Files. I did not realize it was going to get a sequel. Didn't realize it was going to be a franchise. But it did. AI The Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative is the name. It's not called AI 2, and I expect the reason it's not called AI 2 is because you're meant to be able to play these games in either order. And they wanted you to be able to play this even if you hadn't played the first one. And because of that, they did roll back some character development from the first one, which I was not a fan of. I would have preferred it if they kept the character development. And I think that generally that is how people feel about this. But I understand why they did that. It's just a little disappointing. But overall, I enjoyed Nirvana Initiative. It was... well, a longer game than the first one, because we have 2 detectives with 2 different AI balls. No longer Date and Aiba. Now we're beginning the first half of the game with Ryuki and Tama, 2 different detectives with very different personalities, and then moving on to the second half for characters that we already know. Mizuki, probably the fan favorite from the first game, who is now 6 years older, equipped with Aiba, who left Date because she could not stand Date's video watching habits anymore. We have a new mystery, an even weirder mystery than the first game, with bigger stakes. And that's a common thing for Uchikoshi. He likes doing that. He likes making things weirder, making things bigger, making things more important. Does it always work out well? Maybe not. I did enjoy the smaller scale of the first game more. This game goes full on like world-threatening problems and big anime battles at the end, which, I'm not sure if that was I think I liked the conclusion, the climax of the first game more. But there were certainly many elements of the second game that I liked. I feel like a thing that I always like about Uchikoshi's games are the smaller moments. The times when he actually gets you to feel feelings about these weird characters that he makes. Which is why I'm showing this particular Somnium here, where you find out how bad Komeji's life is and the kinds of problems that this weird square-headed man is experiencing. That's really, I think, where the strength of Nirvana Initiative is. It comes from the smaller character moments that you get from these scenes with these characters, and a bit less with the bigger, overarching story. They do some cool things as far as the meta-narrative goes. I mean, this is an Uchikoshi game. You know at some point they're going to mess around with the meta-narrative. It's kind of his thing. Going back to, well, the first game I played was 999, but I know that he's been doing this even before then. Taking the events of the game that you've been experiencing and then turning them around, twisting them around, in this game entirely literally, to give things a different context. I did think the twist in the first game was better. I thought it was better. This, again, there are many elements I liked about the second game. I do like the additional characters that we have. But I feel like the larger story elements concerning the mystery, I feel like AI1 was a bit stronger in that respect. Still, I am very happy to see a continuation of AI. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is if there's going to be a third game. Well, I hope we don't get another zero-time dilemma. I'm hoping we don't get that. Of course, with the Zero Escape series, 999 I thought was the best one, VLR I thought was second best, and then he had Zero-Time Dilemma. And then we had that. Looking at the AI series, it's following a somewhat similar progression. I liked the first one the best, and that was the smaller scale one. The second one I liked, not quite as much as the first, and it had a larger scale. I feel like maybe it's going on that same progression. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that if we get a third game, it ends up being a better conclusion for the series than Zero-Time Dilemma was. But even if it's not, I very much enjoyed AI2. I would absolutely recommend it for someone who enjoys Uchikoshi's games or enjoyed AI1. And that's why it's number 8 on my top 10 list. I enjoy playing it. I like the characters. I like seeing the continuation of some of these characters. But I feel like the details of the larger plot could have been a bit better. But as it is, there was plenty that I liked about AI2. And looking forward to any news about a possible AI3. I hope. I'm hoping they don't do. I'm hoping it's not Zero-Time Dilemma again. You know, it's just like I said. It's a thing that I'm concerned about. Concerned about. I want AI to have a better ending. I like AI. I like AI series. I think so far the AI game. I think 999 has been my favorite Uchikoshi game, but I do like AI and AI2 more than VLR. So if they can, if he can come in with a good third game, I'll be very happy about that. As it is, I enjoyed playing AI, the Somnium Files, Nirvana Initiative. It's number 8 on my list. So this was a surprise to me, a very big surprise. I just wanted to try this out, Doom 3 Quest, try it out for October, because, horror VR games. I didn't expect that this was going to turn out so well. Doom 3, obviously, is not a 2022 game. I probably don't need to mention that. Doom 3 Quest, I believe, originally came out in 2021, but hey, its last update was September of 2022. So it counts as a 2022 game. It was updated this year. It absolutely counts. Doom 3 Quest. I played Doom 3 when it was a new game. I enjoyed it. I was interested in trying this non-official VR port from Team Beef, because there is an official VR version of Doom 3. This is not it. They made their own version, which seems a lot better than the official version. You have hands. They give you a lot of cool options concerning how you want to handle the flashlight. You can turn your body on and off, girl. And you can kiss people. I mean, not officially. You can put your face against their face, which is good enough. This ended up being a much better VR game than I thought it was going to be. I mean, you think about Doom 3, and you think about how it's slower paced than most Doom games. You think about how it focuses on darkness, on shadow, on atmosphere and mood, and then it turned out this was actually the perfect game to port to the Oculus Quest. The graphics are old enough that the Quest can handle it, of course. The Quest being a standalone headset, there are limitations to the graphics that it can pump out, but this obviously is an old enough game that it can do it. But the environments are still good enough that it looks very impressive to see in VR. What Team Beef did here concerning the handling of the weapons, I thought was excellent. It's a little finicky to get used to at first. But I thought the way they let you one-hand weapons, but also two-hand them, and the way the guns feel as you move them around with one hand versus two hands. Do you want to use one hand for a flashlight? Do you want to mount the flashlight to the gun? Do you want to mount the flashlight to your head? How do you want to solve this flashlight problem? The flashlight problem of Doom 3, multiple solutions in Doom 3 Quest. I feel that this worked so well as a VR game. It makes it feel like Doom 3 was made for VR. Like, this is actually the real way to play this game. Which I know is not true, of course. But again, I was just sort of amazed at how well this turned out for not even being an official port of the game. It plays very smoothly. It feels very natural. You can do some hilarious VR hijinks concerning your disgusting long arms if you want to turn your entire body on. So there is VR jank. There is absolutely some jank. But once you learn how to get past the jank, what you have is an exceptionally well-playing, exceptionally immersive version of Doom. They even did some little touch-ups, like they improved the sound of the shotgun to make it beefier. Just like, little things like that, little improvements. Little things that you may not be thinking about in a VR version of Doom 3, but they did take the time to add these little tweaks here and there. Now, of course, Doom 3 as a game does have some certain flaws that, of course, are going to carry over in the VR version. I mentioned in the playthrough, I felt too much of the game takes place in the UAC base environment, and they really needed to get a larger variety of environments. That was really ever my main complaint about Doom 3. And, of course, it's something I completely expected going into the game now because I had already played the game. But as it is, I feel like Team Beef's mod for Doom 3 feels good enough and natural enough that it could easily be an official version of the game. And because of that, I'm greatly looking forward to their future projects. I do know that the current project they're working on is a Jedi Outcast. I believe that they have an alpha version of that for their patrons. I have not tried that. But I'm very much looking forward to trying out Jedi Outcast once that mod is done. And I can only hope that it turns out to be as good as Doom 3 did on the Quest. Doom 3 Quest is homebrew software, so you're not buying this on the store. You're creating a developer account on the Oculus Quest. Then you're enabling developer mode on your Quest. Then you are downloading the mod, then you're downloading the game itself from Steam, and then you're putting it all together on your Quest to get it to work. So, I mean, you know, it's a process. It's a process to do, but once you get it up and running, I do think it is a fantastic way to play this game. Doom 3 Quest. Doom 3, not a new game. Not a 2022 game, but it is number 7 on my list of games that I enjoyed playing in 2022. Power Wash Simulator, maybe number 6 on this list, but maybe should be number 1 of relaxing games of the year. Power Wash Simulator, it's a very simple game with a very simple message. Shit's dirty. You gotta clean it. And that's what you do. You are a person who has discovered their calling in life, their meaning, why they've been put here on this earth. And that is, you gotta clean it up. Clean it all up. Clean what? It could be anything. Could be cars, could be a house, could be a park, could be a mini golf course, as we're seeing here. But they gotta be clean. And you have to be the one to do it. Yes, Power Wash Simulator is about someone who starts a power washing business in an exceptionally dirty town. The town's called Muckingham, so you know it's real dirty there. What is there to say about Power Wash Simulator? It's a game that you might hear the name of, and you might chuckle at. Ha-ha! How funny it is that a game like that might exist. But then you play it. And then you realize that you should still keep playing. And maybe play it some more. Look, these places are dirty. You have to clean them. Since the beginning of video games, one of the primary ways you interact with games is to shoot something. Usually a gun. You have a gun, you aim it, you shoot, and usually you kill. In Power Wash Simulator, they take that gameplay, but you don't kill, you clean. It's essentially aiming and firing a gun. You have different nozzles, which essentially turn out to be different turrets. You have different ammo. You could use soap. But you're not here to kill, you're here to make things better for you in the town of Muckingham by cleaning it up. It is a game that I spent quite a bit of time with. And I should mention that this year, I bought a Steam Deck. And that's relevant because it turns out that Power Wash Simulator is a fantastic handheld game. I don't know if I would have played this game so much if I had not gotten the Steam Deck. But it turns out that the cadence of the game works very well for a handheld because it's something that you pick up the handheld, you start spraying, you have that percentage in the upper left-hand corner that says how much you cleaned. How long do you have to play? Hey, however you want. 5 minutes, 10, 15, maybe an hour. Increase that percentage. And then you pause the game and you put the handheld down, and you do something else. Exceptional handheld game. Something oddly compelling about it. Something oddly compelling about cleaning up these locations and these locales. You know, the game has a story. You don't really know it at first. You know, it doesn't really become apparent until, like, the last few levels of the game, but it does have, like, a save-the-world story, which is kind of funny. I thought it was kind of funny once you get to that. But, of course, the story is not really what Power Wash Simulator is about. It's about cleaning up dirty locations. Everywhere is filthy, covered from top to bottom with muck. And you, with your magic power washer, clean it up. Why do I say magic? Well, I mean, the game doesn't say it's magic. What do I mean it's magic? It's a power washer that has infinite water. That when you spray, you only clean off the dirt. And the object underneath is pristine. It's brand new. And that's when you realize that Power Washer Simulator, not really about washing. It's about renewing. It's about as you get older and you realize that time has gone by and you are becoming dirty. You are becoming worn down. Maybe then the appeal of Power Wash Simulator becomes apparent, where all you need is your special power washer, and you can use that to renew the world around you. And by renewing the world, you renew yourself. You become clean through cleaning the world. Character in Power Wash Simulator found their calling. Have you found your calling? Have I? Have any of us? The reason that we're here. Realizing that this is what I need to spend my time on. This is what I need to spend my finite time on this earth. Something that I need to make sure I do before I go. The protagonist of Power Wash Simulator found that purpose. And that purpose is to clean. And that is what we need to learn. We need to learn ourselves. We need to find our calling. We need to clean it up. We need to make things better than they were than when we arrived. Can you say you have done that? Can you show up at a filthy mini-golf course, and when you leave, it is a better place? Not many of us can say that. Protagonist of Power Wash Simulator. I keep saying the protagonist because the protagonist really doesn't have a name. Because it's you. You're the protagonist. It symbolizes you. It's what you should be doing, what you need to do. Not literally use a power washer, but find your own metaphorical and spiritual power washer and put it to work. Would be that all of us can find that. That is why Power Wash Simulator is number 6 on my list. It is a wonderful, relaxing game when you have a few minutes to spare, and also maybe, just maybe, will make you think more about the world and your place in it. Norco has a great style, a great vibe. And I have to get real close to the microphone and, like, do that with my voice when I say vibe, to get the vibe of Norco. Fantastic pixel art, fantastic sound. I really like the dialogue in Norco. You know, when I first started playing it, I felt that this was going to be a really serious tale about some American tale taking place in the South with poor people. And it is that. It is that. It's more than that. It is surprisingly funny. Like, maybe that's kind of an odd thing to mention. But I think I've mentioned it before that I do tend to respect a game that is actually funny because it's so rare in video games. In many video games that will describe themselves as a comedy, I feel are some of the unfunniest stuff I've ever seen, like could actually exist in the world. So when a game actually makes me laugh, I'm surprised at it. And Norco does do that. Norco has some fantastic writing, which got me into the world, got me into the characters, and actually made me chuckle a number of times. At the same time, it is a fairly morose, depressing tale about people who live in, well, kind of a dead-end town. A corporate-controlled town, Norco. A town that is under the shadow of of S.H.I.E.L.D., an oil company. And Norco is not a place where anyone wants to live. It's a place that, if you live there, you're probably not leaving there. Our main character does leave, goes off on her own, but eventually she does have to return. Can you ever really leave a town like Norco? She has to return because of the death of her mother. And trying to find, where did her brother go? And the story, a lot of it is about her revisiting locations that she already knew from her childhood, meeting some people that she used to know, and getting to learn about Norco and the people there all over again. It's kind of an oddly told story. At first, it appears very grounded, very morose, talking about the living conditions that our character grew up in, living in Norco. And then they have supernatural aspects that I feel like hit harder because I really didn't expect it at all. I'm getting into learning about what it's like, what it's like for these people living in this town, and then you meet Super Duck. And I think that hit me a bit harder than supernatural elements do in many games, because I really didn't expect that to be in a game like this. And I enjoyed that it seemed a bit more original than what you would usually get in a video game concerning a giant godlike monster, because usually when video games do that, they will draw on some, fairly overused material like Lovecraft. Lovecraft is very common. Super Duck, I feel, was more original than that. It's kind of hard to even describe it, really. But something like that I felt was completely unexpected and made me very interested in what this game was about. And ultimately, I feel like what the game is about is being a small, ordinary person that can't really affect the large forces that control their life, or the lives of the people around them. This isn't just Super Duck, but it also has to do with the S.H.I.E.L.D. Corporation. You can interact with the S.H.I.E.L.D. Corporation, you can trespass on their property, you can cause some property damage, but you can't actually hurt the S.H.I.E.L.D. Corporation in any significant way. Nothing that matters, because you're too small. It's not the way the world works. You're small, they're large. Same thing with Super Duck. Super Duck does go through some changes over the course of the game, but it doesn't have to do with what you can directly do to it. What can you do to it? You're just a person. Not like you could actually affect it, really. Norco ends abruptly, and I think that a lot of people have an issue with the way it ends, because it feels like it just ends without really having a conclusion, like a real falling action to the story. But I feel that's deliberate. Like I said, I think that the overarching idea is that the best you can really do in your life is to try to make things better for yourself and your loved ones. And those bigger things, those bigger forces, like maybe a giant corporation, and maybe an AI bird tree god thing that lives underground, hey, you can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about that. All you can try to do is make things okay for yourself and the people you care about. That feels like an idea that's laced throughout Norco. And then sometimes you meet people, like LeBlanc, who seem like a scumbag at first, but then they come through for you. People are not, maybe, how they appear at first. Sometimes you might not like them, but then sometimes they clown up. They come through in the end. Norco is a story about people, and the forces that those people have to deal with. Like I said, it's got a great style, it looks great, sounds great. And when I'm thinking about who is my favorite character of the year, LeBlanc is up there. I gotta admit, he is up there. But that is why Norco is number 5 on my list.
At long last! Up here, you two! Mark well this moment as I, Odeio, unveil to you the noble visage of he who will rule Japan forevermore! Ah! Mine! All is...
The Live Alive remake came out this year on the Switch. The original Live Alive, of course, did not come out in 2022. That was an early 90s game. A Square RPG that never made it to the US. So, I was very interested in seeing how this remake was going to turn out, as I had never played the original, but it was a game that I had heard people mention now and again throughout the years. So I played it this year, and I thought it was fantastic. First of all, I think the HD 2D, they call it, that look, I think looks great for the game. And these bosses have enormous sprites that look really good. Comparing them to the original Super Famicom game, I think they did a marvelous job in updating the look of the game. It's a fast-paced game. It's a game that is episodic, and each episode takes place in a different time period with a different setting and different characters and a different gameplay focus. And I think that this keeps things very interesting. You never really get tired of any one thing in particular in Live Alive, because each episode doesn't last that long. Just as soon as you're getting familiar with the setting of one episode, that episode's done, you're moving on to the next. Maybe one episode could take place like the one you're seeing here, the Twilight of Edo Japan, it's called, where you play a ninja that has to infiltrate a palace and either kill a whole bunch of people, or maybe stealth your way through there, not killing anyone. It's your choice. But then you also have other episodes like Prehistory, or Modern Day, or The Far Future, with different characters and different focuses on the gameplay. Foci? Foci on the gameplay. I really enjoyed the format of the game, and of course, as you might expect, once you finish each time period, and you've gotten accustomed to who these characters are and what their stories are, of course they're gonna bring it all together in the end for the big finale. And I do think that they do that very well. It's very cool when all of the characters finally get together at the end for the big team-up. I wouldn't say that I disliked any of the chapters, actually. They're all good in their own way. I was surprised to find out that one of the chapters, the Far Future one, is essentially a survival horror game, in which there's almost no combat throughout the entire level, but that you're avoiding a stalker monster in a spaceship. And that was pretty interesting to me, considering this originally was a Super Famicom game, that they would have had an idea for that in a Square RPG. But then there are other chapters where the focus is much more on combat, like the present-day chapter, which is essentially a Street Fighter? It's essentially Street Fighter 2, but in RPG format. Wide variety of things in Live Alive, and I greatly enjoyed that. Like I said, I think the episodic format works really well, and when you're getting to the end of the episode, a thing I noticed is that you're waiting. You're just waiting for that boss music to hit. When you know you're approaching that boss of that episode, and you know you're in that final conversation, you're just waiting, saying, okay, when is the music gonna hit? When is it coming? I know it's gonna start. I know it's about to start, and then it hits. and then it hits, and then the boss battle comes, and then the boss battle starts. And I think that the boss music from this game, Megalomania, is very popular, and I liked it quite a bit. And I do think that the remix they made for the Switch version is excellent and really does get you into the hype of the boss battle. Live Alive is not the longest game. As far as RPGs go, you go through it probably a bit faster than many RPGs of the time. I believe they say that Live Alive is basically sort of the middle game of the team that first made Final Fantasy IV and then went on to make Chrono Trigger. I don't have any notes in front of me when I say that. I think that's what it is, if I remember this correctly. So it's sort of like a middle ground, a stage in that RPG development that we did not see in the US. And, well, now we get it now. Now we have it, and we can play it for ourselves. And I think that Live Alive ended up being an excellent RPG with a large amount of variety, characters that I got into, and a really good conclusion where they bring all these characters from all these episodes together for the big overarching bad guy. Live Alive, number 4 on my list this year.
For I have faith in Japan's future.
Mothered, I would say, the story hooked me more than any other game this year. And I should probably mention, when I say that, it's not just Mothered on its own, because Mothered does not exist on its own, does not exist in a vacuum. There are other games in the series by this developer. The first one I played was Echostasis Prologue. Then I played Mothered at the beginning of this year. Then I played the Enigma Machine in the middle of this year. And then further on, I played the demo for Mothered in the Haunted PS1 demo disc, which turned out to be an essential part of the story. So all of these things connected into a single story. There still is a part of the story that is just yet to be released, that being the full game of Echostasis, which is supposed to come out next year in 2023. But I felt that the combined story of these games ended up being the thing that hooked me more than any other story in the year 2022. Well, I first started playing the game because I thought it had a remarkable look. It really has a fantastic, weird look that I found to be compelling. And all of the games by this developer do. It's a sort of hyper-real look to it, in a way. Hyper-real, but also fake look to it. Mothered is not a survival horror game. You know, there's no combat. It's a very story-based horror game. Where you're trying to piece together what is actually happening. The opening premise of Mothered is that you are a girl, Liana, who is returned from the hospital to live with your mother, and your mother looks like this for some reason. And the game, which is not long, it's a very short game, is about piecing together, why does your mother look like this? Why did you go to the hospital? What's wrong? Something's wrong, but you're not sure what it is. Figuring out what that is what it's all about. Something I liked about Mothered. The story was something that I felt didn't feel derivative or overly referential. Now, maybe this is just, I'm not thinking of whatever references it might be using, but it had like the unique experience to me of a horror game that felt wholly original. And the reason I say that is because horror, more than probably any other genre, is a genre that relies on reference. And this is kind of probably why, it's because the golden years of horror video games are considered to be, PS1, PS2, and so a lot of newer horror games will kind of rely on being referential to the older games. I understand why they do that. I tended to feel like Mothered really wasn't that. Like, it was this original thing that just appeared independent of anything else. What to say about Mothered? I feel like it has a fantastic tone to it. I feel like it's not like a jump scary game, It's just like there's this weird undertone of there's something wrong with what's happening. And you can talk to Mother. It's not like Mother's hostile or anything. She'll feed you, your nutrients. You love your nutrients, right? They're your favorite. You can talk to her, eat your nutrients, walk around the house. It's beautiful, really. But there's something wrong with all of it. And I really liked how the plot went. It has a lot to do with the idea of human consciousness versus AI and the possible combinations thereof. I liked how the story went. I thought it was interesting. And that also has a lot to do with the stories of the other games that this developer works on, probably culminating with the full game of Echostasis next year. But even though Echostasis is next year, I did want to put Mothered here on my list of favorite games from 2022. And as I said, it's not just Mothered, but is the other games in this series. If you like horror, if you like story-based games, I will highly recommend playing all of them. The first one being The Enigma Machine, then Echostasis Prologue, then Mothered, then the demo for Mothered, after you play the full game of Mothered, and then finally Echostasis next year. I highly recommend it. They're very short, but it was the story of any video game this year that stuck with me the most, and the story that I am interested in finding more about when Echostasis comes out. It's a hard game to talk about, Mothered is, without really spoiling plot twists or anything. But I found it to be the most compelling story of 2022, with a fantastic look, sound, and an underlying seething of dread that lasts throughout the whole thing. That's why Mothered is number 3 on my list this year. Oh, Vampire Survivors. A game of 2022. Literally. I started playing this in January, and then I kept playing this in February. I kept playing this in March, and playing this in April, and playing this in May, and playing this in June. Played it in July, though my playtime did start to go down at that point, and then played it in August, and played it in September, and played it in October, and November, and have been playing it in December. So when I'm thinking of games of the year, this is quite literally a game of 2022, as this game has been in early access throughout most of the year, getting constant updates, and then officially came out in October. That's right, it's out of early access. The full real game is here. The official release date in October, even though everyone was playing it before then. What is Vampire Survivors? Vampire Survivors is a weirdly compelling game that feels like it should be trying to steal money from you, but it's not. And maybe that's the thing about it. It uses the tricks that gambling and gacha may use to maybe addict you to it, and to get you just... it feels good. It feels good to see and to hear and to get the treasure chests, and ooh, look at the treasure chest animation and the music. It does these things, but it's not actually extracting money from you. Like, the game has a certain amount of money it costs. I think it's, what, $5, the base game? There is a DLC pack that came out recently. It doesn't cost much. So it's a game that's using all those tricks, but it's not actually preying on you. It is a game that I currently have 166 hours on Steam in, which is unusual for me. I don't usually put that much time into any game anymore. Like, when I was a kid, yeah, but these days, no. These days, no. But Vampire Survivors is there, and it's always been there. And it probably will continue to be here. And maybe one reason for that is because Vampire Survivors is such an easy game to play while doing something else. And I think that's really the key here. The idea of, I want to do something, but I only have a limited amount of time. What if I could do two things at once? And I could... Vampire Survivors is a game that you could play while also doing something else at once. I don't think that's a good habit to get into. I feel like if you get into that habit, then maybe you're going to be attracted to entertainment that you don't necessarily need to give your entire attention to, because that just suits your lifestyle. I feel like that's happening. And I feel like Vampire Survivors is an excellent game for that purpose. A game that you want to play while you're doing something else. Like watching a stream, or a movie, read a book, a comic. You can do so many other things while playing Vampire Survivors at the same time. Play Vampire Survivors while playing another video game. I mentioned previously that Power Wash Simulator is a fantastic handheld game. So is Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors has basically become the poster boy of the Steam Deck. It's like the system seller for the Steam Deck, which is funny, but it is. And, but you don't have to play it portably. You can play it on your PC. Is it coming out on consoles now? I think it's on the Xbox. Is it? I think so. It's weirdly compelling, and I can't really elucidate as to why. But it feels good. And it feels good when you get a whole lot of weapons, and you get the cursed objects to make more enemies appear, so more enemies can die from your weapons. My favorite weapons are the bouncy projectiles. Can you tell? I like it when I have a lot of things bouncing around the screen. That's not the only kind of weapon in Vampire Survivors. There are many different kinds of weapons, but I like the bouncy ones. Like Rune Tracer, and you can evolve it into No Future, causing all those lasers streaking around the screen. There's Bone, there's Cherry Bomb. I also have Hellfire, because you can get an Arcana that causes Hellfire to bounce around, and it's wonderful. You can also do things like limit yourself to only one weapon, and then put all of your experience points into one weapon. And then the weapon gets so big it covers the entire screen, which is hilariously broken, but they let you do it because why wouldn't they let you do it? What reason is there to prevent the player from doing that? There isn't one. Vampire Survivors lets you play the game how you want to play it, even if that means one gigantic fireball that fills the entire screen and it's just on screen all the time. You can do that. Is there an ending to Vampire Survivors? Technically, there is a last boss. That exists. Does that mean you stop playing Vampire Survivors after the last boss? No. You keep playing it. It doesn't really matter that you beat a last boss and saw credits. It's there. But, you know, you're still going to play the game. You're still going to play the game. You're still going to get a ton of weapons and items, evolve everything, make things ridiculous, and then, like, stand still for, like, the final 10 minutes of the game while tons and tons and tons of dudes flood the screen and get disintegrated by your ridiculous build that you've put together over the course of the previous few minutes. And that's what Vampire Survivors is really about. Making some ridiculous build and seeing it go to work. It's a lot of fun. I know that you look at it and it seems too simple. It seems like you're barely playing. But it's some of the most fun gameplay that I've had in the year of 2022. And if that's the case, does anything else matter? Does anything else matter if you had that good of a time with it? That warning about flashing lights really is not kidding around. By the way, once things get serious. It's a game about lasting a half an hour, but then maybe lasting a little bit more. Maybe becoming a bit stronger. Getting a better build. And maybe making a way to last past that 30-minute mark. Vampire Survivors is a game that starts out hard, but gets a lot easier as you continue on. And things that seem like insurmountable obstacles earlier on become child's play to get by, once you know. And there's a certain satisfaction to that I feel I didn't get from anything else from 2022. And I guess that's why Vampire Survivors is number 2 on my list. Yes, the best game of the year is mini golf. Not just any mini golf, virtual reality mini golf. Now, I should mention, Walkabout Mini Golf VR did not come out in 2022. It came out in September of 2020. But it has been regularly updated since then, and has gotten plenty of new content in the year 2022, including the Mist DLC, which is what we're watching now. Have you ever wanted to play mini golf on the Island of Mist? The answer is yes, it's just that you never knew it. You never knew it. Walkabout Mini Golf has great support, but the main thing that makes it number 1 is it feels fantastic to play. It may sound obvious, but the main thing of a mini golf game is that the putting has to feel good. And in Walkabout Mini Golf, the putting feels really good. It is a game that I keep going back to over the last few months to play and replay courses. To try to do them just a little bit better, just a few less strokes each time. And maybe to find the secrets, as these courses do have secrets. I'm using my special putter from the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea DLC. I found the hidden putter. I like it. It's got a tentacle around it. It's neat. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that I was going back and forth about what number one should be. Vampire Survivors was my number one game for a long time during this year. And I was wondering, going back and forth, is Walkabout Mini Golf actually my number one? And I realized something about it. For Vampire Survivors, I would play it a lot. And one reason for that is that I could easily play it while doing other things. But virtual reality doesn't work that way, does it? No, it doesn't. Virtual reality demands your attention. It demands you put the headset on and shut yourself off from the rest of the world and only have the game in front of you. Doesn't sound like much, but that is much more of an obstacle in terms of playing it than Vampire Survivors has. And yet, I would keep going back to Walkabout Mini Golf. I would keep putting on the headset every time I had maybe like a free half hour to put in another round on one of these courses. It is fantastically fun to play. Even if you've already played real-world mini golf, and you know what mini golf is, even if you know, you might be surprised at how satisfying Walkabout Mini Golf feels to play. Like I said, they get the feel of it just right. Even though you're only holding, VR controllers. You're holding your, one controller in each hand. Well, this is actually a one-handed game. You can see that I'm only using my left hand. But I have, both hands on the controller, because it's simulating a golf club. Not in the game, I mean both my real-world hands. Even though you're only holding that one controller and not actually holding a golf club, it has a real, genuine feel to it of swinging the club and hitting the ball. I would say as far as a satisfying gameplay experience, Walkabout Mini Golf does hit it, does nail it, better than anything else I've played this year. Maybe not the most actively fun game, not like a thrill-a-minute game, but it is a very satisfying, relaxing, it's just a nice, good time. It's a nice, good time. Playing mini golf in places that you would not expect to play mini golf. Honestly, the reason I did get this was earlier in the year, they announced the Myst DLC, and I never thought about that, but I want to play mini golf on Myst, so I'm going to buy this game and, try it out. And I ended up playing through every course, the easy versions, the hard versions, getting the hidden balls, finding the hidden putters, doing just about everything that the game had to offer on every course. And it was pretty clear early on that this was one of the best VR games I've ever played. And I've played a few. I've been into VR for a few years now. And I've played some good games, I've played some bad games, but it's rare to play a game that feels as good as Walkabout Mini Golf. I've been playing it single player. If you want, there is online play. You can play it with friends, though I wouldn't know about that. I've just been playing single player. But I have greatly enjoyed my time with Walkabout Mini Golf. And, it's not done. They still are making new courses, releasing new DLC. I believe there is a more Jules Verne DLC that's going to be coming out. They made a DLC course based on the movie Labyrinth, which is really good. They also go the extra miles in some ways, such as when you play the hard version of the Myst course, it becomes partially a puzzle game. it becomes a combination golf game and puzzle game. So they do actually implement puzzles on the hard version of the Myst course. Not every course is like that, but they did do an excellent job with this. I mean, the reason the game is good and is not just about Myst, but it's about everything. There's more traditional courses, and then there are some more ridiculous courses. But really what it all comes down to is how good the game feels, how smooth it feels, and just what a nice time. Just a nice, pleasant time. Spending like a half an hour here and there to putt the ball around. It gets frustrating sometimes when you can't quite figure out the exact hit you want to make. But then you find it. I mean, there's only so many ways I can talk about mini golf. You know what mini golf is. There's not a whole lot of insight I could give you into mini golf. But I just want to emphasize how good this game actually is. But really the only way to find out how good the game is to play it yourself, which, I mean, if you have a VR headset, that's easy, because this isn't just a Quest game, it is on Steam as well. I believe it has a ranking of overwhelmingly positive, at least the last time I looked at it. Which is also another thing that got my attention about it, that a mini golf game was rated so highly. But yeah, they just everything, they really nail everything about this game, about the way it plays, about the options, about the presentation. You can fly. I don't do it in this video. You can point your putter into the air and then flight mode turns on and you can fly around. Why would they do that? I don't know. I don't know why they would do that, but it's funny. It's funny to do that. It's not just a mini golf course. Like I said, there are more advanced challenges concerning finding items on the courses, solving little puzzles here and there to get bonus items. And the bonus items don't do anything. Like when you find bonus balls or get bonus clubs, hey, they don't actually help you. They're just cosmetic, but it's fun little trophies to win. I really enjoy... I mean, like I said, I guess I'm just repeating myself at this point, because I don't really know what else there is to say. I just want to show you... I just want to show you that someone made a mini golf course of the island from Myst, which is something that I never knew I wanted, but clearly I did. I can only hope they expand on it. I don't know if they do. I don't know if they do intend to make any more Myst-based courses. I would certainly welcome it if they did. But what else can I say? This has been my #1 game of the year. The first time I've given a #1 to a VR game. I almost gave it to Resident Evil 4 last year. Resident Evil 4 just narrowly losing out on the #1 place to Disco Elysium last year. So this is the first time I've given it to a VR game. But it certainly does deserve it, because as simple as it looks, as simplistic as the game of mini golf is, the team behind Walkabout Mini Golf did an excellent job making the best VR mini golf game I could hope for, and then making a lot of weird-ass DLC that I would not have expected. Well, that's been my top 10 games of the year 2022. Well, top 11. I mean, there was Grim Fandango as the old game, and there are the 3 games that I regretted not putting more time into, those being Tunic, Proteus, and Tactics Ogre Reborn. Like I said, I feel that if I had put more time into those would have had a good chance to get on this list. Unfortunately, that is not how things went. Oh well. Here is the list. Number 1, Walkabout Mini Golf. Number 2, Vampire Survivors. Number 3, Mothered. Number 4, Live Alive. Number 5, Norco. Number 6, Power Wash Simulator. Number 7, Doom 3 Quest. Number 8, AI The Somnium Files, Nirvana Initiative. Number 9, A Plague Tale Requiem. And number 10, Runner. And so, we come to the end of our presentation. And with that, it's also the end of the year 2022. Well, I hope you had a good year. My year was all right. It's not a bad year, actually, as far as years go. I hope you had a good 2022, and I hope you have an even better 2023. And of course, next year, at the end of the year, it'll be time once again to collate 10 games into a numbered list, because that's the only way you know it has any value. Looking back at the experiences you had, at the games you played, thinking about them, and deciding, I want to make an ordered list based on my enjoyment of those games. It's the only way I can quantify if I did anything I liked this past year. Once again, another year done, another list done, another year crossed off the future years that I will have. And you. 1 year gone. I shouldn't think about it in that way. Like I said at the beginning of this, you shouldn't focus on the future too much, just like you shouldn't focus on the past too much. You should focus on the present. But focusing on the past year, in terms of the games we played, that's okay. That's harmless. I hope that you enjoyed the top 10 list of 2022. And I know, actually, the games on this list, I think, may be leaning towards a bit more obscure than a lot of my lists. I mean, I do play a lot of obscure games, but I feel like this game may be even more so. Even more so than previous years. This list had games where people are going to say, I've never heard of that. What even is that? It's just, I imagine there's more of that on this list. But if you've played any of these games, I would like to hear from what you have to say about them, and if you like them as well. That's it for this year. That's it for this month. That's it for tonight's stream. Have a good and happy new year, and a good 2023.